What if the political chessboard just flipped overnight? What if a deal signed quietly across the northern border could shake the foundations of a strategy that was years in the making? Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Impact Report. Please subscribe to my channel. Today we're diving into a development that has sent shockwaves through Washington and beyond. Trump's master plan, carefully constructed around trade leverage, energy dominance, border security, and economic nationalism, may now be facing an unexpected challenge. And that challenge is coming from Canada's surprise deal that's changing the game in ways few predicted. For years, Donald Trump positioned North American trade as a central pillar of his political and economic strategy. During his presidency, he renegotiated NAFTA and replaced it with the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, arguing it would bring manufacturing back to the United States and protect American workers. The idea was simple but powerful: use tariffs, trade pressure, and bilateral negotiations to reshape global supply chains in America's favor. Canada, traditionally seen as a stable and predictable partner, was expected to align closely with Washington's long-term economic vision. But politics evolves, global pressures shift, and alliances can recalibrate when national interests demand it. Canada's new agreement, crafted amid rising geopolitical tensions and global supply chain disruptions, signals a subtle but significant pivot. While the details vary depending on the sector involved, what makes this deal explosive is timing. With Trump positioning himself as a defender of American industry and a strategist ready to reassert economic dominance, Canada's move complicates the narrative. It introduces uncertainty into the framework that was supposed to be stable under USMCA, and when uncertainty enters markets, political messaging becomes harder to control. The exterior of this political vehicle, the visible optics, are dramatic. Public statements emphasize cooperation, modernization, and economic resilience. Canada frames its decision as diversification, ensuring it is not overly dependent on a single partner. For the United States, particularly within Trump's strategic worldview, diversification can be interpreted as dilution. When a neighboring country seeks additional trade channels, investment flows, or security partnerships beyond Washington's orbit, it signals that influence is no longer automatic. From an exterior standpoint, this looks like a recalibration of power. Canada has historically balanced its relationship with the United States carefully, aware of the vast economic interdependence between the two nations. The United States remains Canada's largest trading partner, and the border between the two is one of the busiest in the world. However, Canada has increasingly sought partnerships in Europe and the Indo-Pacific, reinforcing agreements such as the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement with the European Union. That broader strategy weakens the leverage Washington once relied upon. Now let's step inside the interior dynamics of this situation. The interior is where policy details live. It's where economic clauses, tariff structures, environmental regulations, and labor standards shape real-world impact. Canada's agreement reportedly includes provisions that attract foreign investment into key sectors: energy transition, advanced manufacturing, and technology infrastructure. These sectors overlap directly with Trump's America First industrial revival blueprint. The interior is compact but powerful. Policy adjustments in tax incentives, export regulations, and joint infrastructure projects can redirect billions of dollars in investment flows. Even minor regulatory differences can determine whether a factory is built in Michigan or Ontario. For political strategists, this is where the real battle lies, not in headlines but in fine print. Performance is the next factor. How does this development perform in economic terms? Markets react quickly to perceived shifts in supply chains. If Canada's deal lowers trade barriers with alternative markets, Canadian exports could diversify, reducing vulnerability to potential U.S. tariffs should Trump reintroduce aggressive trade measures. During his presidency, Trump imposed steel and aluminum tariffs on Canada under national security justifications, creating friction. If he were to return with similar tactics, Canada's diversified trade portfolio could cushion the blow. Performance also involves political performance. Trump's campaign messaging relies on projecting strength and negotiating leverage. A surprise agreement by Canada can be framed in two ways. either as a challenge requiring a tougher stance or as evidence that previous strategies pressured allies into seeking alternatives. Both interpretations carry political risks and rewards. Safety features in this geopolitical structure revolve around economic safeguards. Canada has built protective clauses into its trade agreements that allow dispute resolution mechanisms and investment protections. The USMCA itself includes review clauses every 6 years, meaning the framework is not permanent. This review mechanism can act as a safety valve, but also as a pressure point. If tensions rise, the renewal process could become a bargaining battlefield. Another safety mechanism is energy interdependence. The United States and Canada share deeply integrated energy markets. Pipelines, electricity grids, and resource flows cross the border daily. Even amid political tension, economic logic often keeps cooperation intact. This interdependence acts as a stabilizer, preventing abrupt breakdowns. However, Canada's investment in renewable energy partnerships beyond North America adds a new dimension, potentially reducing reliance on U.S. infrastructure dominance. Unique selling points define why this situation matters beyond headlines. Canada's surprise deal showcases strategic autonomy. It signals that middle powers can maneuver between larger geopolitical forces without direct confrontation. For voters in the United States, this becomes a debate about global leadership. Does America command loyalty, or must it constantly renegotiate it? Trump's brand thrives on negotiation theatrics. Bold threats followed by deals. But when allies act preemptively, the negotiation script changes. Another unique element is timing within the broader global context. Rising tensions with China, ongoing European economic adjustments, and post-pandemic supply chain restructuring create a volatile environment. Canada positioning itself as a flexible hub in this shifting network increases its bargaining power. For Trump's master plan, which emphasizes bilateral leverage and tariff threats, flexibility from allies reduces predictability. Price is perhaps the most critical element. What is the cost of this geopolitical shift? For businesses, price is measured in investment uncertainty. If American companies perceive risk in future trade stability, they may delay expansion. If Canadian firms see opportunity in alternative markets, capital may flow northward. The political price for Trump could involve recalibrating rhetoric. Overemphasizing confrontation might alienate moderate voters who prefer stable alliances. Underemphasizing it could weaken the tough negotiator image central to his brand. The economic price extends to consumers. Tariffs function as taxes on imports. If trade tensions escalate, prices for goods crossing the border could rise. Automotive supply chains, deeply integrated across North America, are particularly sensitive. A single vehicle may cross the border multiple times during production. Even small tariff increases can amplify final consumer costs. Strategically, Canada's move may encourage other middle powers to adopt similar diversification strategies. If allies perceive unpredictability in U.S. trade policy, they may hedge their bets. This doesn't necessarily signal hostility, it reflects modern economic pragmatism. But for a political campaign built on restoring unquestioned American dominance, hedging can appear as hesitation. Public opinion will shape how this narrative unfolds. In Canada, leaders may present the deal as safeguarding national sovereignty. In the United States, Trump supporters may interpret it as justification for tougher trade enforcement. Meanwhile, moderates may advocate for renewed diplomatic engagement to reinforce continental unity. Leadership optics also mattered. The personalities involved. Donald Trump and Canada's current Prime Minister carry distinct political styles. Trump favors direct confrontation and public bargaining. Canadian leadership traditionally emphasizes multilateral diplomacy. These stylistic differences amplify the perception of tension even when negotiations remain behind closed doors. Economic analysts will scrutinize investment flows over the next quarters. If data shows increased capital moving into Canada's targeted industries, Washington strategists may reconsider leverage tools. If little change occurs, the story may fade into symbolic politics rather than structural shift. In conclusion, Trump's master plan is not collapsing, but it is being tested. Canada's surprise deal introduces complexity into a strategy built on leverage and predictability. Whether this becomes a turning point or a temporary ripple, depends on execution, messaging, and economic data in the months ahead. Political chess is rarely decided by a single move, but every move reshapes the board, and right now, the board looks different than it did yesterday.